The next problem we're going to go ahead and investigate number 85. So we're going to solve a formula for a specific variable. Really the extra layer of challenge that you're encountering is the fact that now instead of one variable that you're going to have to keep account for, you have multiple. Okay, so for 85, we are given 1 over r is equal to 1 over r sub 1 plus 1 over r sub 2. And we want to solve for r, so I'm going to actually highlight that in red. Okay, note that r, r1, and r2, they're all different. The subscripts are what are used here to make them different. They're not going to be used to calculate, so like r1 plus r2 is not going to equal r3. It's just saying this r sub 1 is different than r sub 2, hence the different subscripts. So I want to figure out how to get r by itself. So one of the first things that I would maybe suggest doing is to clean up the left-hand side. We've worked with fractions before, and we know that we can combo this if we get a common denominator. So in this instance, well, let's just focus on the right-hand side. Let's kind of ignore the left-hand side for now. You know, kind of break this problem into chunks. So I'm going to kind of draw an arrow over here, and I'm going to just take a look at this. And I want to find a common denominator between these. And this should be something, especially after going through the section 1.1 homework, that you should be familiar with. Okay, so it looks like I can multiply this first term by r sub 2 over r sub 2, because this denominator does not have, this first denominator does not have an r sub 2 in it. And likewise, I can turn around and multiply the other fraction by r sub 1 over r sub 1, because the second fraction does not have an r sub 1 in its denominator. But if you kind of take a step back now and look at what I've written, now I do have a common denominator here. So this will be equal to r sub 2 over r sub 1 times r sub 2 plus r sub 1 over r sub 1 times r sub 2. We can clean that up further by shorthanding the denominator. If they both have the same denominator, I might as well just combo what I'm seeing in the numerator under that denominator. Okay, so let's go back to our other problem here. So we have 1 over that r that we want to get on its own, and that's going to be equal to r sub 2 plus r sub 1 all over the product r sub 1 times r sub 2. Okay. So if you notice, you have a proportion here. Recall that a proportion is where you have one fraction equal to another. So that was the whole reason why I focused all of my attention on the right-hand side. I wanted to take those two fractions and combine them to make it one fraction. So since I have a proportion, this allows me to cross-multiply. Okay, it's just a quick shorthand. It helps you kind of save a couple steps. So now I'm going to have that red r, my goal r, times that quantity of r sub 2 plus r sub 1. And that's going to be equal to 1 times r sub 1 times r sub 2, but that looks a little redundant. So I'm going to rewrite this line. I'm going to have r times r sub 2 plus r sub 1 is equal to r sub 1 times r sub 2, because 1 times anything will be that anything. So notice now the only thing that's standing in your way between finishing this problem and actually working it, I guess, is the multiplication between that r that you want by itself and that quantity. Well, we can divide it by that quantity. So this now leaves us with r is equal to r sub 1 times r sub 2 all over r sub 2 plus r sub 1. Let's see here. Your book might have it a little bit different. So your textbook, if you are looking at the textbook and kind of completely subscribing to that answer, I want you to kind of take it with a grain of salt and make sure that if your answer is a little bit off, make sure that it's just that it's not that you're just presenting it a little bit differently from the book. Okay, there's a difference between having a wrong answer and presenting the correct answer differently. They have it written as r sub 1 times r sub 2 all over r sub 1 plus r sub 2. But note that your commutative property allows you to write your additions and your multiplications in any order that you want. Because again, 7 plus 3 is the same thing as 3 plus 7. So therefore, r sub 2 plus r sub 1 is the same thing as r sub 1 plus r sub 2. Okay, so here are your potential final answers. Either of those two that I have written in the navy ink would be acceptable.